afternoon. Would everyone who is able please stand for our honor guard? Please have a seat.
Well, once again, good afternoon. My name is Vicki Hamill. I'm the interim pastor here, and it is an honor and a pleasure to welcome you here this afternoon to this concert of patriotic music and a salute to the men and women throughout our history who have fought for freedoms that we enjoy today. The United States is an experiment in democracy, a grand experiment in diversity that finds strength in unity, in strong individuals who create community that is greater than the sum of its parts. This ongoing experiment hasn't been easy, but it has forged a country and a people who are zealous in the pursuit of justice and who stand strong for peace. Last week, there was an amazing event that took place in our country, free and open elections. And whether you are pleased or not by the outcomes or the results, the fact is that we could go to the polls knowing that our votes would make a difference, knowing that our votes would be we wouldn't be threatened in our voting, knowing that there would be a peaceful transition of our government, no matter who won. And we were guaranteed those freedoms by the men and the women who have served in the armed forces of the United States of America. And so we gather today to remember and to celebrate and to honor the men and women who have stood in harm's way then, and we honor their families for the sacrifices that they made. And we know that some have paid the highest price. Their sacrifice has taken them away from us. And there are no words. I don't believe that there are words who can honor those losses, but only our ongoing commitment to exercising our freedom, to continuing in this grand experiment, and to taking this country for all that it is, in all of its diversity, in all of its strength, and in all of its unity, to a place of peace. And so we welcome you, and we dedicate this concert to the men and women of the armed forces of the United States of America, those who have served, those who are serving, those who will serve. May God bless America.
Before we start on a more serious note, I just want to tell you that it's been 15 years since I've had this uniform on, and I can't realize how much tighter it's gotten. I'm here to explain to you what Armistice Day is about and why it was formed. This information that I'm giving you right now was written by Jessica Ellis and edited by Brown and Davis. Harris, I'm sorry. I just want to give them credit for it. Armistice Day is held annually on the 11th of November to commemorate the end of World War I and the service of armed forces. In America, the holiday is called Veterans Day and has evolved into a Remembrance Day for veterans of all American wars, as well as a national holiday. Canada, the United Kingdom, France, Belgium, Australia, and New Zealand all celebrate the holiday each year. In November of 1918, the toll of World War I had reached an unbearable high. Under threat of countryside rebellion, German forces sought a meeting with the Allied forces to hammer out a peace treaty. Famously, the treaty was made effective at 11 a.m. on 11 November, giving it the interesting historic distinction of being ratified at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. The treaty ended fighting on the Western Front, an agreement that would be confirmed by the Treaty of Versailles in 1919. Nearly 1 year later, King George V of England made Armistice Day, also called Remembrance Day, a national holiday to honor the veterans of the armed forces. Other participating countries quickly joined suit. Memorial traditions sprung up throughout the nations, including visiting the graves of soldiers killed in the war and holding parades, concerts, and events in honor of veterans. This is from me. Today, we have come together to recognize the veterans of all wars who have served this country proudly, and particularly those that have given the ultimate sacrifice to protect our most precious way of life. As a Navy veteran, I can tell you there is no rank between veterans, only a mutual respect for those we have stood beside, whether it be in peacetime or on the battlefield, and those who took an oath to the United States of America to defend it against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And for the families you have protected, and for all of America, I want to thank you.
Why this program? The presentation of a patriotic concert at this church on our town's bicentennial birthday is not a new idea. In 1913, the Centennial Program indicates that on the first day of our town's 100th birthday, which was on a Sunday, our church presented a patriotic concert at 4 p.m. on the bandstand in front of our church. And here we are now, during our bicentennial time, on a Sunday at 4 p.m., presenting a patriotic concert. The fact that Veterans Day is on a Sunday this year has provided us with the perfect opportunity to invite our Millbury veterans to attend this concert and to join us in the unveiling of a World War I service flag. The stars on the flag represent 16 young men from our church and town who served in the armed forces during the European War. This concert is being videotaped and will be shown on cable TV at a future date. We ask that you save your applause until the end of the program. I also want to remind you that there is a handicap accessible restroom in the back of the church here, and there are 2 more restrooms downstairs. Please turn off in consideration your cell phones and other electronic devices, and notice that there are exits in the back of the church, and there is an emergency exit to the left up here. Enjoy the concert.
afternoon. I'll be just sharing a few program notes with you. These program notes I'll credit Martina Falco for these notes. In colonial times, the word America only referred to a geographic region of the world. The American Revolution took the word and applied new meaning to it. It forged a country out of 13 deeply different colonies, which came together and united to form a brand new nation. The hard work, risk, and sacrifice of the founding fathers and the soldiers should never be taken for granted. In this concert today, the music will pay its own tribute to the veterans and the military history of this country. And you will see the evolution of musical styles. You'll hear music from all of the major periods of military history. We've tried to find some examples from each time. The piece I just played, the Prelude and Fugue in A major, composed by William Selby, is an example of the artistic carryover of musical styles from Europe. As yet, America did not have its own style of art, literature, or music. All of the music that was performed or taught in the colonies was specifically European. William Selby was actually a friend of George Frederick Handel. He was a British-born person who emigrated to the colonies, and he settled in Boston and served as organist at King's Chapel there from 1771 and for many years thereafter. The next thing I'm going to play is the tune that we all know as Yankee Doodle. And I'm lifting this up because this tune had its origins in the Revolutionary War. It was originally a song that the British soldiers used to make fun of the ragtag, disorganized patriots in the Continental Army. However, the Americans turned it around and adopted it as a new theme song for their cause, and it became the Patriots' unofficial anthem. The tune was played a little differently back then, as you will notice. And since we don't have a fifer in the house, I will use one of the lovely flute stops on the organ just to try to emulate the sound that a fife might make. The Revolution made America an independent country, but the War of 1812 tested its survival as an independent country and made it clear to the rest of the world that it would not be defeated easily and now had a permanent status as a nation in the world. Towards the close of the War of 1812, in September of 1814, the British bombarded Fort McHenry in Baltimore. As the dawn came and the smoke cleared, the American flag was seen still flying over the fort. And this sight was the inspiration for Francis Scott Key's poem called The Defense of Fort McHenry. It was put to music and officially became our national anthem in 1931 under the name of the Star-Spangled Banner. Not only did the U.S. hold its own and come out on top of that battle, but in a broader sense, the nation stood up and held its own in the eyes of the world. I'd invite you all to rise and sing the national anthem. Even though the American Revolution made this country independent, and the War of 1812 recognized it in the eyes of the world, the country was still not fully whole, because millions of African Americans were still held in slavery, and the country was divided north against south. The American Revolution was only half of what made this country free. The Civil War was the other half. First, it was a war to preserve the Union. And after the Emancipation Proclamation, it became a war to both save the Union and end slavery. Before the Civil War, people still saw the country as a collection of states and referred to America as "these United States are." After the Civil War, that concept changed, and the country came to be referred to as "the United States is." No one would challenge the unity of the United States of America anymore, because it was clear that we were one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The music you're about to hear is a beautifully haunting piece, which it has become synonymous with the highly acclaimed Ken Burns documentary called The Civil War, A Shokin Farewell.
Gettysburg Address is considered to be one of the most well-known and the greatest speeches in American history. It was delivered by President Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War on the afternoon of Thursday, November 19, 1863, at the dedication of the Soldiers' National Cemetery in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. In just over 2 minutes, President Lincoln reiterated the principles of human equality assured by the Declaration of Independence and proclaimed the Civil War as a struggle for the preservation of the Union. Please listen now to Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. 87 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on the great battlefield of that war, and we come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that the nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated far above our poor power to add or to detract. The world will little know nor long remember what we see here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather to be dedicated to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus so far nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
Julia Ward Howe was an ardent abolitionist. After hearing the song, John Brown's Body, she was inspired in a dream. When she awoke, she wrote down the poem that became the battle hymn of the Republic. It is a call to arms to fight for abolition. I invite you to stand and sing. As you can see, this is an event that, like America, includes many people with many talents, for which we are grateful. And so I would like to place them in the offertory as we go about our conversation about giving right now. And there's one other thing I would like to do, and that is I know that there's a time later on in the program when Jerry Stead would stand and acknowledge people and thank people, and she would never stand and acknowledge herself. And so I want to acknowledge Jerry Stead, and I invite you to applaud in the middle of the program. I really think she has done an outstanding job working with Nancy Evelyn, all of these people, to provide us with this incredible experience. So thank you, Jerry. The offering is taken this afternoon to benefit the work of the Millbury Veterans Council. They will be using the funds to repair existing memorials that have fallen into disrepair and to establish future memorials for veterans in the town of Millbury. We thank you for the work that you do. It's quite inspiring to drive through the town and see these incredible memorials. As we take the offering, the choir is going to be singing Irving Berlin's Angels of Mercy, which he wrote in a tribute to Clara Barton. Clarissa Harlow Clara Barton was born on Christmas Day in 1821 in North Oxford, Massachusetts, where the Clara Barton Birthplace Museum is located. She died in 1912 at the age of 90 and is buried in the cemetery in Oxford, in the North Cemetery in Oxford. In between those times, she led an extraordinary life. At the age of 16, Clara began her work in life as a school teacher. She taught in Oxford and in Charlton, and for a while she even taught in West Millbury. Barton was a pioneer American teacher, patent clerk, nurse, and humanitarian. At a time when relatively few women worked outside the home, Barton built a career helping others. During the Civil War, Clara Barton nursed the dying and wounded on the battlefields where they suffered, and she became known as the Angel of the Battlefield. One of her greatest accomplishments was founding the American Red Cross. The Red Cross helps victims of war and disasters and has most recently been involved in the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy. Clara Barton was an amazing woman, and the men and women who have served our country are amazing, and this is called the Angels of Mercy. Oh, by the way, please give generously. And smile while we do it. gather these gifts from the generosity of our hearts, from the love that we have for our country, and for the gratitude that we have for the men and women who have served to keep us safe. We ask a blessing on givers and on these gifts, that they might be blessed, and that those who administer these funds use them wisely and well to honor those men and women whom we honor today. We ask these things in the name of all that is holy. Amen.
World War I. World War I was referred to as the European War or the Great War. People hoped and believed that it would be the only conflict of its kind, the war to end all wars.
We are honored to have the opportunity to unveil this World War I service flag. This flag was discovered in the church steeple last spring. It has 16 blue stars that represent the young men from our church who served in the armed forces of the United States during the European War. A gold star was placed on one of the blue stars. That signifies that Corporal William Higginson, who lived close to the church, sacrificed his life for the cause of liberty and freedom. We must not forget those who never returned. William Higginson was a great-uncle and a great-great-great-uncle of Leah and Justin Murphy, two members of our choir today. On the flag, you will see two Greek crosses, which signify that two men were wounded in service. This is an honor roll, which lists the 16 names of these men. It was written in beautiful calligraphy, and at the bottom it is signed, made August 19, 1919, by Simeon King, age 75 years, 5 months, and 5 days, a Civil War veteran of Company B, 57th Massachusetts Volunteers.
The names of those veterans are as follows: Waldo A. McCracken, George Green, Edwin C. Kallstrom, Baden P. McLean, Eston E. Durstall, Bertrand Glover, Franklin O. Rice, Captain Arnold G. Hurd, Jasper J. Vio, Fred J. Jordan, Colonel William Higginson, William Alexander, Theodore R. Bright, Sergeant Horace E. Dalrymple, Herbert G. Kallstrom, and Second Lieutenant Gordon K. Hurd. At this time, Roland LaChance and Terry Bickford will unveil the flag. And here, ladies and gentlemen, is the World War I service flag.
The judge could hold it higher.
Excuse me? It's very heavy. Very delicate.
Just for a moment, roll.
A 1919 newspaper article stated that when the war ended, 15 men came as a group into this church on a Sunday to attend a welcome home program to demobilize the flag. The article also stated that a fine musical program was arranged for that occasion. In order to preserve the flag, it was framed by Mrs. Hurd's Sunday school class. Her husband and son are both represented.
World War II and beyond. We would like to recognize the 5 branches of the U.S. Armed Forces veterans. As you hear the music of your branch veterans, please stand. We will all sing a verse of each song while seated. See your song sheet. Lucia Falco will lead the way.
time, I want to thank those who spent so many hours rehearsing for this program. The choir, made up of 5 different churches, have put in many rehearsals, and I've loved everyone. They joined with Lucia. Who planned the music, directed the choir, played the organ, and was so patient with all the bumps we had along the way, the most recent being a locked organ with a broken key in it. We also want to thank our accompanist on the piano, Janine Baker, and the children's choir, which sang about our town. And we are so fortunate that such talented musicians as Kathy Shepard on the violin and Adam Major on the trumpet were able to join us here today. Having the youth band play a current popular patriotic song was a special treat. Our appreciation goes to those who helped finance our concert, including our sponsors A&D Spinning, Jeffco Fibers, and IBA Incorporated. It's so kind of the Bicentennial Committee to let us borrow their beautiful new flags, especially having Millbury flag when we were doing a Millbury song. How perfect. We thank the photographers who volunteered to preserve the memories of today's concert. And we are so grateful to Nancy Avila for her behind-the-scenes work to make this concert become a reality. And lastly, our thanks go to all of you who have come this afternoon to honor our Millbury veterans, especially Commander George Murphy and his wife, and Stuart Mulhane and his wife. Chaplain Roland LaChance and Mrs. LaChance. And a special thank you to Senior Vice Commander and Memorial Chairman Joe Bianculli, as he was my resource on all veterans issues, and he has helped me find information concerning the soldiers represented on this service flag. Thank you, Joe. Now, let's close with singing of America the Beautiful, and then let us listen to Lucia's rendition of the Washington Post March, accompanied by Adam Major on the trumpet.